could be done.
Or I can become something different.
Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hey, hi, hello, good afternoon. It's 1 o'clock on Sunday, the 4th of August. This is the weekend on GB News. Now, violence has erupted across the UK from Hull, Liverpool, Bristol, Manchester, Blackpool and Belfast as demonstrations turned violent overnight. Then, as student debt soars and graduate opportunities shrink for the first time ever, the proportion of 18-year-old applicants has fallen for a second successive year. Are British universities in serious trouble, and should we be worried? And Eric Trump has told GB News exclusively that his dad, Donald, would happily send Harry and Meghan back to the UK if he wins. But would you want them back is the big question, isn't it? Now, I'm Dawn Neeson, and this is indeed The Weekend, and I hope you're having a really good one out there. Thank you for joining me. It's quite chilled, that music, isn't it? Do we need something a bit more oomph, do you reckon? Because it's just a hot Sunday lunch, isn't it? Right, now, but this show is not all about me, funny enough. It's nothing without you and your views. So let me know your thoughts on all the stories we're discussing today, or anything we'll chat about, basically. It's really simple. All you do is visit gbnews.com/your say and join our conversation. Now, I've got a cracking panel for you, and they are both poised and ready to go. Keeping me company on today's show is author and broadcaster Amy Nicol, looking stunning, and broadcaster Mike Parry, who...
Looking stunning.
It looks stunning and is here. Exactly. But before, you know what's coming, don't you? We get stuck into today's story. Here is, with the equally stunning Ray, reading your news headlines out for you.
Thanks, Dawn. 2 minutes past 1, our top stories this hour. Police warn further violence is likely after at least 90 people were arrested yesterday as protests took place across England and Northern Ireland. Many towns and cities saw clashes between anti-immigration demonstrators and counter-protesters, with police officers attacked and injured. Comes after 3 girls were killed in a knife attack at a dance club in Southport on Monday. Among the arrests, 14 were made in Bristol, 11 in Liverpool, 20 in Lancashire, amid reports of looting and the setting of fires. Speaking earlier on GB News, former Scotland Yard detective Peter Blexley did not mince his words.
No matter what somebody's concerns are, if you pick up a brick or you pick up a bottle and you try it at a police officer, you are an idiot. End of story. And unfortunately, we faced yet another evening of violence when more police officers were injured. Something quite dramatic is going to have to happen here, because I see no sign at the moment of this unrest diminishing. In fact, I see it escalating and spreading.
A supermarket owner in Belfast says his business has been reduced to ashes after it was targeted during disorder in the city. Bashir said Muslim businesses were deliberately targeted and is criticising police for their response to the violence. This morning, a clean-up operation was underway in the Donegal Road area following last night's unrest, which lasted for several hours. Bashir was asked if he would be able to reopen.
I don't know. You have to ask the police about that. When they stop all of that, then we will talk about it. All of that's happened, and the police did nothing. I'm telling you the truth. What kind of police letting the people to burn everything down? I don't know where is the safety in that, but this is all rubbish.
Number 10 sources are disputing claims that Sir Keir Starmer is planning a summer getaway on Monday, despite the risk of further unrest. It comes after Tory leadership candidate Robert Jenrick urged the PM to cancel his trip and get a grip on the situation. Many more arrests have been promised in the coming days, as the Prime Minister said the police have his full support to take action against extremists. Robert Jenrick says Sir Keir must stay and tackle the problem.
Well, look, I think it would be completely wrong for the Prime Minister to go on holiday whilst parts of Britain are burning. This is a very serious situation, and we need the Prime Minister to be leading the country. The police need our full support, and they need to know that he is there supporting them, making sure that this situation is being handled from the very top.
But former Labour MP and independent advisor to the government on political violence and disruption, Lord Walney, told us earlier on that the Prime Minister could work whilst on holiday.
Keir Starmer, you can see, is absolutely on it, as is the Home Secretary and his ministers. And I imagine that even if, formally he is spending some time with his family next week, he will be properly plugged into it. I'm sure that is an issue which they are keeping a roving brief. And prime ministers are never fully off duty, as we know. Even if they've gone somewhere, they take with them the full apparatus to be fully switched on.
So Keir Starmer has accused protesters of attempting to sow hate by intimidating communities. Former UK MP Rupert Lowe says he needs to listen to the protesters' concerns.
What we need is an honest debate. I don't have a golden bullet for years and years of the elite's mismanagement of our immigration policy, but we've got to have a frank and honest discussion about it. There isn't always a sort of one-line answer to these things. It's extremely complex. But what we can't go on doing is undermining the foundations of this great country and not listening to the people who are now concerned about it, because they're right to be concerned. They've got every right to be concerned about what's happening to their country.
Well, in the US, Florida is now bracing itself as Tropical Storm Debbie is expected to turn into a hurricane before hitting landfall this evening. Governor Ron DeSantis has called up 3,000 National Guard and placed most of Florida's cities and counties under emergency orders. Evacuations are also taking place in areas most likely to be affected. The National Hurricane Center has described it as a life-threatening situation, with winds expected to build to 70 miles per hour and waves 2 metres high. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Ray Addison. More in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you very much, Ray. Now, let's get straight into today's stories, shall we? Unfortunately, we're starting off with the one that is on the front of all your newspapers this morning. Violence has erupted across the UK from Hull, Liverpool, Bristol, Manchester, Blackpool and Belfast as demonstrations once again turned violent. More than 90 people have been arrested as injured police officers are treated for broken bones. I mean, come on, what's going on? Late last night, ministers were locked in talks with the judiciary to make court sit for 24 hours to fast-track sentencing. The Prime Minister has been telling police they have a minister's full backing to take all necessary action to keep our streets safe from thugs who so hate their words. Joining me now is GB News reporter Adam Cherry, I believe, who is in London for us outside, I think, the Home Office. Is it, Adam, or have you moved now?
No, still outside the Home Office, Dawn.
OK, and can you bring us up to date on what politicians are about saying the situation?
Yeah, so as you said, in the last 24 hours, senior cabinet ministers meeting with members of the judiciary to figure out what comes next. And at the moment, that comes in the form of more police officers on the beat and opening courts for 24 hours to deal with the deluge of people coming in. And this will be achieved through something known as the Additional Courts Protocol. Now, the last time this was used was actually by Keir Starmer when he was the director of the Crown Prosecution Service, and he was the one who determined in 2011 that following the riots then it was appropriate to use this to get on top of things, and it was ultimately successful. Then the question is, will this work now? It's not quite at the same level of intensity as we saw in 2011, so perhaps that's an appropriate step. The other problem Keir Starmer has at the moment, as Ray Addison referred to in the bulletins, is this debate over his holiday. Now, Downing Street are pushing back somewhat. It sounds to me like a little bit of spin, to be honest, because they're saying he's not going on holiday on Monday. This story originally appeared in the Times, in which the allegation was that he's flying off in a week's time, which is not Monday. So Downing Street slightly dodging the real meat of the issue there, and you see Robert Jenrick jumping on that on our programme actually saying, whilst parts of Britain burn, perhaps it's not a good idea for the Prime Minister to jet off. He actually criticised Boris Johnson for a similar thing in 2021, so I'm sure you will see MPs say that as well, perhaps as soon as tomorrow, Dawn.
Adam, I think what an awful lot of people, including myself, by the way, are having trouble getting their heads round is how the Parliament is in recess, right? There are lots of communists, we've been hearing from some of them on the news bulletins. Their properties are being torched, their communities are being ruined, buses and cars are being burnt in their streets. And Parliament is in recess. I mean, have we heard any more about, people actually, our politicians getting back to doing their jobs?
So there are some voices, Priti Patel chief among them, who are calling for Parliament to be returned immediately so they can debate this. And there is precedent for it. In fact, to talk about 2021 again, which was during the withdrawal of troops from Afghanistan, that was when Parliament was recalled under emergency conditions. So you might see something similar here if it continues, if the riots continue in this way. Again, it depends. If it's an emergency and the optics are so poor, MPs simply not even in London to discuss this whilst, as Robert Jenrick puts it, parts of Britain burn, is an awful look. Obviously, Parliament only went into recess, on Tuesday? So there's not even been a week yet. And it is a shorter recess anyway, but nonetheless, a question to be asked of our leaders.
Yeah, and one more question before I let you go, Adam. Sorry to make you sort of come up with these answers. But the other question I want to answer is, Yvette Cooper, the Home Secretary, has been going about, more police on the streets. We're forcing the courts to work through the night, more judges doing the job. We've been told constantly that our prisons are full, that, there's no more spaces for prisoners. In fact, we're going to have to release some in the next few weeks. We have prosecution levels at an all-time low, particularly rape cases, by the way. Where is suddenly all this money and all these extra staff, police and judges coming from? Have they explained that yet?
Well, no, that's a good question, isn't it? I mean, it turns out governing is much more difficult than campaigning. In a few weeks' time, the Prime Minister is going to have to release thousands of convicts onto the streets because there are only, 700 spaces available in prisons, and you can't throw up a prison overnight. So some difficult choices to be made. That's partly why Rachel Reeves was so excoriating of Jeremy Hunt with this so-called £22 billion black hole. These are going to require some seriously difficult political choices, and it's much easier to blame the previous guys for it. And so, look, and there is some truth to it. They've only been here a month, in fact, a month exactly since the election. So they can't fix everything overnight, but it is obviously very difficult.
That is Adam Cherry for us. Thank you very much. Live outside the Home Office, and he seems to be indeed the only one there, which also says a lot, doesn't it? Right, OK, now let's see what my brilliant panel make of this. As I've told you, I've got Amy Nicole and Mike Parry with me today. Front page of all the newspapers today, shocking scenes overnight, literally across the country, from north to south. Parliament mostly nowhere to be seen, it has to be said. What on earth is going on, Mike? Are we right to be angry?
Well, we're right to be angry and right to be concerned, but I'm not over-concerned. I am an expert in rioting, OK? In the early 80s, I did Toxteth, Moss Side, Belfast, Brixton, and I saw riots which literally demolished communities. And the riots we've seen, I'm not trying to belittle, the devastation it brings to communities in the present form, but I saw whole streets burnt down. The riots in the early 80s were absolutely shocking. And if you've ever been in Belfast with the riot, I've dodged more petrol bombs than most people have dodged raindrops, OK? So I'm not trying to underplay it. What I'm saying is that the thing that happens with riots is sometimes it's a legitimate protest. You can bet your life once a legitimate protest has been announced, the extremists will move in from all over the place and take advantage. It's lawlessness. It's often looting, by the way. People forget that a lot of it is about smashing into shops and smashing their windows and taking everything. And the core protest issue is always lost in everything else that happens, setting fire to buses and cars and all that. Now, the other thing I'd like to say just quickly is that we've had riots in this country in Leicester and Leeds this year, and we've had riots that we've seen over the last couple of weeks, and they've been different sorts of riots. Far right have definitely got involved in the riots over the last week or so, and Keir Starmer's reacted to that. But there's a different attitude from politicians when it's groups of ethnic people in Leicester rioting against each other, and in Hare Hills in Leeds, which was, you know, a terrible riot which seemed to have been sparked by nothing except some children being asked to go into social care. So I do think politicians are selective about how serious they think it all is when it happens.
I would agree with you that politicians are certainly selective, because if we look at the reaction to the Palestine protests, they were very quick to call out anti-Semitism. All of our leaders very quick, particularly Suella Braverman, who jumped on calling them hate marches because of pockets, tiny pockets of people who were being anti-Semitic on the marches. Now, with these riots, these racist riots,
but they weren't riots. The Palestinian marches often weren't riots, were they?
Every single political party in this country has concerns about immigration levels and has policies to target immigration and the numbers that we're seeing. Every single one. You cannot say that these riots are an expression of those legitimate concerns that are held by millions of people who managed to not set fire to a shoe zone in the process. Now, we need to call out this Islamophobia because businesses are being targeted, individuals are being targeted. There have been videos of people who are just ethnic minority background walking around and being chased by these rioters. So we need to say what they are. They are racist riots. You cannot call them anti-immigration protests. That is just an insult to anyone with concerns about immigration who manage to not go. These are just a small but extremely loud group of people.
I agree, a minority. But in Leeds, policemen were being chased away by rioters. You know, that's what happens in riots. Those outside come in and want to cause chaos and anarchy.
I think that was very localised to that community because they have had a historic distrust of policing, particularly around family matters, which led to those protests. Now, I'm not justifying the violence at all. I'm just trying to explain it. With this, what we've seen is social media communicating across the country to start protests outside asylum hotels, for example, which aren't even local communities. These local communities are turning up to counter-protest. These are people being bussed around the country, a small number of people being bussed around the country to make it look more widespread.
Is there evidence of that?
They put a list of the hotels on the internet so that this small group...
Where is evidence of people being bussed to attend these riots?
There absolutely is.
Well, I've seen evidence of that,
arrived in places like Bristol, the local community in Bristol have gone to the hotel ahead of time to counter-protest. These do not represent the local people of those areas. In High Wycombe, the same thing happened. They turned up at the railway station in High Wycombe and the local residents met them and said, shove off.
These allegations are made in Southport, and yet the police and the authorities have now checked, you know, on those that they've arrested and all that. They're all local people.
You had the mother of the children in Southport saying, please do not commit violence in my daughter's name.
Of course you did. But what I'm saying is, you know, again, it seems to be social media. We all know that social media put out a completely false description of the person alleged to have been responsible for the crimes in Southport. It could have come from as far away as Russia. It was horrible stuff. But I haven't seen any evidence yet. You may have evidence that I haven't seen of people actually going around the country in coaches joining riots. I haven't seen that.
I have seen coordinated lists coming out on social media of let's go to this list of hotels, let's get people to these areas. Particularly Blackpool, that's another example. There was a Rebellion Punk Festival going on at the time. Peaceful, lovely, great example of that community doing something nice and in unity. And then they went in and attacked that.
We are running out of time. Do you understand, not the violence, Amy, but the anger of people out there who are now being branded far right, and they're saying, I'm not far right, I'm just concerned about what is happening.
I think if you're turning up to a town you're not from with a six-pack of cider and some matches to set fire to...
I didn't ask that question about the rioters, Amy. I asked, what about the people who are turning up to protest?
But they're not protests, are they? They are not protests. Yes, of course, maybe it started with the original march, the Saturday before Saturday was Saturday. Maybe there are pockets of people with legitimate concerns. But now that legitimate concern has been completely hijacked and is being used as a smokescreen to commit violence.
All protests are. And you're talking about integration and the failure of integration in this country. And we're all concerned about that. Doesn't matter which side of the political divide you come from, integration is a complete failure in this country, and it's a failure because politicians refuse to acknowledge the difference that integrating different communities makes.
I think we've seen from the clean-up that the integration has worked, and it is just these outliers that are coming forward.
We are coming back to this subject in the next hour, but for now, unfortunately, we're running out of time. Thank you very much. For all the best analysis and opinion on that story, please do go to our website, gbnews.com. Now, here's some good news for you. Imagine having a £30,000 extra in your pocket to play with this year. Well, it could be yours in our latest Great British Giveaway, as we're giving away our biggest cash prize so far this summer. And it could be yours, and here's all you need to do to win it.
Don't miss out on your chance to win a whopping £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. It's extra cash that could really make a difference to your coming year. You could find yourself on that holiday you've always wanted to take, buy that treat that always seemed out of reach, or just send some of those day-to-day financial stresses packing. £30,000 could be yours. For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text CASH to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB07, PO Box 8690, Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good luck indeed. Right, OK, I'm doing this. I'm not allowed to enter that, but I can come with you, by the way, if you win. Just saying. And this is GB News, and it's the weekend. It's our lovely, shiny new lunchtime show, and there's lots more coming up on it. As student debt soars and graduate opportunities sink for the first time ever, the proportion of 18-year-old applicants has fallen for a second successive year. Are British universities becoming less popular? Do you actually care? All of that and much more to come. This is GB News, Britain's news channel, and this is the weekend, and I hope you're having a good one, but don't go too far.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Well, to enrich us on the best cheeses and wine to buy, I'm delighted to be joined by the CEO of Inflorescence, Jacinta Madison Wilson. Jacinta, thank you so much for joining us in the studio.
Thank you so much for having me.
Also, thank you so much for bringing what is
what a Sunday you're having.
of wonderful... What do we have before us?
So, we've got 3 gorgeous wines to try today. We've got an English sparkling, we've got a beautiful rosé and a dessert wine, and, of course, cheese.
Wonderful.
And paired them all beautifully.
Now, English sparkling wine has had a bit of a renaissance.
Oh, it's incredible, isn't it?
To use a French word to describe English sparkling wine. It's having a bit of a moment in the sun.
Absolutely. I just think it's so exciting that this is right on our doorstep, essentially, an hour out of London, and we're around beautiful vineyards.
The chalk sort of sediment is exactly the same as the Champagne region.
Absolutely. Yeah, our soils are really similar. We use the same grape varieties a lot of the time. We make it in exactly the same way as Champagne. Our climate is like Champagne was 40 to 50 years ago. So we're really kind of drinking it blind. You almost wouldn't know that you're not drinking champagne. But it's right here on our doorstep. We can stay local now.
Absolutely marvellous. Well, we've got... what is the best order to start?
OK, well, we're going to start with sparkling, because all things in life should start with sparkling. I got married a month ago, and this was actually the... Thank you so much. This was the wine I chose to have as our first wine that we served the guests. This is from a winery called Bluebell, which is in Sussex, and I've chosen to pair this with a lovely... kind of the English version of Camembert, which is called Tunworth. It's a very classic pairing of champagne and brie. So we're kind of going to do the English version of that now.
Classic.
Absolutely. Are you ready to get stuck in?
I am so...
OK.
Hang on. Is it cheese first or wine first?
I'd have a little sip of the wine first.
Sip of the wine, bite
have a little bite of the cheese, and then some more wine. Get it all mixed up in there.
It's like a cheese sandwich.
Exactly. Yes.
OK, here we go. Cheers.
GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Sunday nights on GB News. From 6, Neil Oliver. At 7, it's Free Speech Nation with Andrew Doyle. At 9, Mark Dolan. And at 11, get set for the week ahead with headliners. Tomorrow's papers tonight. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Oh, welcome back to the weekend with me, Dawn Neeson. We've just been discussing PVC. I told you this would get spicy, and that is to come, don't worry. Now we're talking about education. Are British universities becoming less popular? As student debt soars and graduate opportunities shrink, for the first time ever, the proportion of 18-year-old applicants has fallen for a second successive year. Are our universities in serious trouble, though? And is it something we should actually be worried about? Amy, I'm going to come to you first on this one. I don't even know if you went to university. I'm assuming you did.
Oh, I'm glad you... Yes, I did.
Yeah, so I thought you would do, because, I mean, the thing is, I mean...
Because I'm so academic.
Because you are very intelligent as well. But the age thing, when I was at school, only 2 girls from my school went to university. I mean, it just wasn't the done thing. But obviously that was back in the 1800s. So what do you make of this story? Why aren't kids going to university anymore?
Well, it's only a 0.3 drop. So I think this story's been slightly inflated. But it is true that more people have been getting put off, because things like you are going to expect to pay a 9% tax for your entire working life to pay back your student loan. I think the fees have just got ridiculous. And I think that's terrible because of the amount of good that university does. And I'm not just talking about your possible earnings, I'm talking about the non-monetary benefits of higher education. And also the fact that universities are such engines of regional growth and keep towns and cities alive in terms of the employment that they give, in terms of the research, the innovation. We live longer than ever. Surely we want to spend longer in education. We've got much more time to do it. And it's just so great for you as a person to attend university, putting your job aside at the end of it. Even if you went and never got a job,
Yeah.
to me, it would still be worth it.
Yeah.
What do you reckon, Mike?
I think universities have become a massive racket in this country on 2 scales. £9,000 are the tuition fees for somebody in this country. Do you know they can charge up to £35,000 for overseas students? Now, I live down on the coast near Portsmouth. I would say 1/3 of the students there are foreign students at Portsmouth Uni, paying that £35,000. And do you know that these vice-chancellors at universities get paid £400,000 a year because they're employed to run a money-making business? And part of that business, by the way, sorry to keep going on, are huge student blocks of flats, which are literally in the billion-pound industry market. These contracts are given to developers who build these units, and they're full of overseas students whose parents can afford to put them into a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom apartment. As a student, it's a huge racket. Now,
those international students bring in billions to the
do.
economy.
That's exactly,
their net benefit.
That's
so
exactly what I'm saying.
We take them away, we have even less growth.
No, that's exactly what I'm saying. And what's happening now, as you said, it's only a 0.3% drop. On the numbers concerned, that's a big drop. And I know for a fact student lettings companies are now suffering because for the first time in about 20 years, they're not getting 100% capacity in the homes that they provide for students. It's going to be a crisis, but I think that kids are now suddenly starting to think for themselves for the first time and thinking this conveyor belt, O-levels, A-levels, university, isn't the answer anymore, because the time that it takes a student with a degree that's not a terribly good degree to get a job when they come out can be up to 2 years, and they end up working in McDonald's. Not that that's a bad job, but you know what I mean, they're wasting their time. I went to university After 1 year, I realised, having won the snooker competition and my local pub's darts competition, there was nothing else to do. So I got out, and the world will be so grateful because I started my media career and I've been communicating with the world ever since. That's what I think young people should do.
So the thing about it is at the moment, with the government debt, with the loans that don't get repaid, actually the government cuts even because the high earners still subsidise those that never managed to start repaying their loans. Now, the government has shown that they can interfere with the universities because last year, if you remember, they suddenly said, right, international students can't bring any dependents.
That's right.
So they did interfere there. So they could interfere here and help and come in and bail out the universities a little bit to bring the fees down.
Not the government.
Nobody should be paying the amounts that they are to go to university. They're taxing aspiration.
Yeah.
The problem I have with that principle, Amy, is the fact that you say the government could bail out universities. It's not the government. The government doesn't have money. It's taxpayers. We're already paying more tax than we have in 70 years.
OK, but I'm looking at the good that university brings to all the areas that there are universities, what they bring to the local economy.
Yeah, because they're businesses.
Also, their innovation, their research departments. They're constantly uncovering new medical advances, scientific advances, not to mention how much the arts research that comes out of universities. They are an overall good for the country. So it would be really short-sighted to say, oh, well, the student numbers are falling, no one can afford it, so let's close some, rather they should say, people can't afford it, let's subsidise the fees.
They're going to have to. 3 universities, I'm told, are on the brink of closure because they simply can't keep up. It's all down to
That's where the government comes in.
It's all down to Tony Blair's education, because Tony Blair inherited a great economy, but there was one area of the economy which was troublesome, and that was youth employment, right? So he came up with the idea, him and his Labour government, I tell you what, to cover the let's send over a university. John Major had already started turning polytechnics into universities, so we had far too many universities, shove all the kids in there. But over the years, honestly, the number of degrees now, which are just utterly useless to young people, it's been a terrible country.
That can be... So I think you've characterised university incorrectly. You said school, A-level, GCSE, A-levels, university, as if they're all the same kind of thing. The university is so
I said it's a production line.
To doing full-time education and doing exams and being in... higher education is worth so much more than that. You learn who you are, you learn how to look after yourself, you learn what it is to be an independent adult, you have time to think, which I think is really important.
Yeah, but we haven't got any bricklayers and we haven't got any lorry drivers. I'm serious, we haven't got any plumbers. You know, this idea we're going to build all these millions of houses, I don't know where you're going to get the bricklayers from, because my mate who runs a house building business in Scotland has to go to Poland and Romania every year to recruit bricklayers.
We do have a skills shortage.
So why don't we rebalance it?
But you can't force somebody who wants to go and do an English literature degree to be a bricklayer.
No, but you can offer incentives to say you don't all have to go to university to do a degree in embroidery or something. You could do something more practical with your hands. That's what I think we should be doing.
Do you actually think that everybody should go to university, Amy?
Yeah, well, I think they should definitely be given the option.
I think it's 3 wasted years.
If you start... But that just shows you didn't go. It just shows you didn't go.
I did for 1 year, and then I realised it was a waste of time.
Years. I mean, I think anyone that goes to university can see that. And I do think that the argument that we are living longer is relevant here, because when you leave school at 18, you are still just a kid.
Yeah.
You need that time. You need that more time to learn who you are and learn what you're about and what you like and what your interests are. And then when you go into the world of work, you're going to be more productive. Whether you earn more or earn less, you're going to be a better, more rounded human.
Let's talk to someone who is obviously not rounded or even possibly human at the moment. I didn't go to university, but I have to move on. Sorry about that, folks. What are we doing now? Oh, yeah, I'm Dawn Neeson, and this is GBNews. I get very excited about this point. There's plenty more coming up in the show, but I'm getting excited because it's the news headlines with Ray.
1:32, our top stories. Police warn further violence is likely after at least 90 people were arrested yesterday as protests took place across England and Northern Ireland. Many towns and cities saw clashes between anti-immigration demonstrators and counter-protesters, with police officers attacked and injured. It comes after 3 girls were killed in a knife attack at a dance club in Southport on Monday. Among the arrests, 14 were made in Bristol, 11 in Liverpool and 20 in Lancashire, amid reports of looting and the setting of fires. Number 10 sources are disputing claims that Sir Keir Starmer is planning a summer getaway on Monday, despite the risk of further unrest. It comes after Tory leadership candidate Robert Jenrick urged the PM to cancel his trip and get a grip on the situation. Many more arrests have been promised in the coming days, as the Prime Minister said the police have his full support to take action against extremists. The public is being warned not to approach a suspect after a man was fatally stabbed in North London. 33-year-old Kamar Williams from the Isle of Dogs is believed to be connected to the murder of 53-year-old Derek Neil Thomas on the 30th of July. Mr Thomas died from a stab wound to the chest. The Metropolitan Police arrested a 30-year-old woman on Saturday on suspicion of assisting an offender. In the US, Florida is bracing itself as Tropical Storm Debbie is expected to turn into a hurricane before hitting landfall this evening. Governor Ron DeSantis has called up 3,000 National Guard and placed most of Florida's cities and counties under emergency orders. The National Hurricane Center has described it as a life-threatening situation. Those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Ray Edison. More in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you very much, Ray. Now remember, let me know your thoughts on all the stories we're discussing today by visiting gbnews.com/yoursay and join the conversation. And I promise I am going to read as many of them out as I possibly can. So many of you getting in touch, certainly about the riots and legitimate protests and about being branded far right, whatever that actually even means. But so keep those messages coming in and we will get through as many as possible. I really promise that. Now, Eric Trump has told GB News that his dad Donald would happily send Harry and Meghan back to the UK if he wins. But look, let's not beat about the bush. Would you want them back? All of that and much more to come. I'm Dawn Neeson and this is GB News. This is The Weekend and it's Britain's news channel, and don't go too far.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather. A northwest-southeast split developing over the next 24 hours. Rain across the northwest of the UK. Some heavy bursts developing this evening and overnight across western Scotland. A Met Office warning in force. Quite windy here too. The rain continuing into Monday. Elsewhere, generally dry and turning quite warm and humid into Monday as well. For Sunday afternoon, generally dry across much of England and Wales. Though quite a lot of cloud, best of the sunshine towards the southeast. Cloudier skies further north and west, Northern Ireland, western Scotland seeing some outbreaks of rain, which will turn increasingly heavy later. Turning increasingly windy here too. Temperatures struggling with that as 15, 16 Celsius. Cooler further south as well, highs around 22 or 23 degrees. Through this evening time, if we zoom into Scotland, we can see the outbreaks of heavy rain across western parts, and further east it will be drier, some glimmers of brightness from time to time, and that rain also extends into parts of Northern Ireland. A Met Office warning coming into force across western Scotland from 6 p.m. right through the day on Monday too. Brighter skies to end the day across England and Wales, temperatures in the low 20s, so fairly pleasant to end the weekend. Across the northwest, as we head through the evening and overnight, you can see further pulses of heavy rain pushing in from the Atlantic, fairly brisk winds too. Overnight, generally cloudy skies for Wales and the West Country, some rain and drizzle in places. The rain turning heavier across northwest England too, the clearest skies towards the southwest, but with southerly winds we're drawing in quite humid air, so temperatures again mid-teens at their lowest. So a humid start on Monday, wet and windy across the northwest here, outbreaks of heavy rain, Northern Ireland, western Scotland. The Met Office warning out there through the day. Generally elsewhere, bright or sunny spells, but largely dry. And the winds coming in from the south, humid as well. Temperatures lifting towards the mid to high 20s across the east and southeast, fresher further northwest.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it?
Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain. only on GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Stand by door. Prod me away. I think in my ear. Stand by door. Stand by door. I'm standing by. Well, actually, I'm sitting down. Anyway, welcome back to the weekend. It's me, Dawn Neeson, and this is GB News. And I hope you're having a wonderful, wonderful weekend out there. Thank you for joining me. Now, Eric Trump has told GB News that Donald Trump would happily send Harry and Meghan, back to the UK if he wins that November election. This comes as the couple are set to speak to CBS on their Sunday morning show. 3 years on that bombshell interview, how can you forget, with Oprah Winfrey. In an interview with GB News' Ben Leo, this is what Eric Trump had to say.
What I can tell you is my father had so much respect for the Queen, as did I. My mom knew so many of them for years. I think you probably know that. Had a great relationship with Diana and everyone else. And, you know, that's a very sacred kind of institution. And you can happily have those two back. We'll happily send them back from America. You can have them back over here, but I'm not sure if you guys want them any more than we might not want them anymore. They feel like they're on a little bit of an island of their own. But listen, you can always have bad actors in anything. You can always have, you know, spoiled apples in every orchard. But the institution of the royal family is beautiful, and it's something that's really actually admired by a lot of Americans, and I think that should be protected. And
Oh, the Institute of the Royal Family is beautiful, like Harry. Harry and Meghan, would you welcome them back with open arms?
I'm not sure what Eric Trump's going on about. You're trying to second-guess the British public, sending them back. I think Meghan's an American citizen anyway, so why would you want to just expel them? He seems to insinuate that because Harry upset the Queen and my dad, you know, President Trump, as he was and could be again, was very close to the Queen, we think we'll punish them by sending them back. Look, I feel very sorry for Harry because I think he's a boy now who's totally lost. I think he's living in isolation in California. I think that, you know, since they've sort of fallen out of public favour, I'm not sure he's got anything to do when he gets up each day. Meghan has ambitions in all sorts of ways, you know, social websites and all that kind of stuff. And I don't think Harry's doing anything. And he keeps trying to change the agenda about why it all happened and how it happened. His latest was that, well, you know, my brave war against the British media is the reason why I fell out with my family and my family should have supported me. You betrayed your family, Harry, for $100 million, and that's why you fell out with your family and they won't speak to you. But he can't get his head around that. And look, I would have him back if I felt he could be rehabilitated back into the royal family, but I can't see that ever happening.
When you say boy, he's actually, what, 40 now, is he? 41?
He's 39.
39? That's hardly a boy.
But we still think of him as a boy, don't we, because of what happened to his mother. And
little 13-year-old
yeah.
walking behind Diana's coffin.
Yes.
But you said Meghan is ambitious.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I think...
Oh, steady on.
Meghan is innately political, right? She has been since she was a child, and she wrote that letter to the washing up company or whatever.
That's right.
She then, when she was in her royal roles, she stood up for Me Too, which was like, whoa, what are you doing? I think Meghan might enter politics,
but
US politics. So no wonder Trump wants to shove them to one side and get that going.
Yeah, but do you think she can take on politics? And what you've seen of her so far,
do you think it might be a matter of time before they back Kamala Harris?
I could see that coming.
I can see that coming too.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is I don't think Meghan's ever made a policy statement or a speech in which anybody said, do you know what, I didn't know that she, you know, really had such a grasp of current affairs. She's only ever spoken about what I would call trite issues, you know, which are dilettante-type views on certain issues and a bit of moaning here and a bit of upset here. I've never seen her really say anything important.
I think you underestimate her, Mike.
Well, has she said anything important? Have I missed it?
Yeah, like all the stuff they've done with the Archwell Foundation, all the causes that they've raised money for and raised awareness of. Every time she comes to the UK, she does some charity work while she's here.
Yeah.
I think they are quite legitimate.
Actually, that reminds me of a conversation I had with the lovely Colombian cleaner, basically, we have working in the building. She's helped me learn Spanish very, very foreign. Yeah, I know. I've managed hola and cerveza.
She's not
doing too well. But, I mean, she's from Colombia. And this reminds me of the point that Harry made, talking about Meghan being intelligent. And Harry saying, well, I can't possibly bring my wife back to the UK because it's not safe for her.
No, I'll take her to Colombia instead.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But Colombia, where they're going on tour, is much safer.
Yeah, I've always stuck up for them on this, right? Because I've said if they don't have the government security, then the security can't carry a gun, and that's the difference. The close protection, it's not as. But yeah, then they sign up to go to Colombia, and it did cross my mind.
Yeah.
I
mean,
I claim the same.
Everybody in this country is protected by the Metropolitan Police if they're in London. It doesn't matter who they are.
There's a slight difference between the security he would get if he was a member of the royal family and the security that he can employ privately.
Yeah, I agree.
But so he wanted to get that. That's why he was.
But you don't need guns in this country as much as you need them in Colombia. Very few people have guns in this country.
And bearing in mind they live in America, where there are more guns than people in any case.
Yeah, exactly.
And they try and kill former presidents.
Honestly, I think it's a shallow argument.
If you don't take them back, though, they're going to be Shamima Begum stateless.
Oh, there's an island somewhere that.
Where can they go?
Where can they go? You tell us.
No, hang on. She does want to come back. She's already said.
But if Trump's expelling them...
I don't see how Trump could expel them and for what reason.
Green card. He's going for Harry's green card.
I think that would be very unusual. I know loads of people who lived in America for the last 25 years applying for a green card. They've never been expelled because that's the way America works.
There's a particular think tank that is gunning for Harry to have his green card removed.
Yeah.
Yes. And they may or may not have Trump's support.
Yeah, yes, but Harry may or may not have told a few porkies in his book about drugs and things. Anyway, I've run out of time. Oh, my Lord. You got a second wind, you two. I'm Dawn Neeson, this is GB News, and it's the weekend, and there's loads more coming up on today's packed show. Now, the fun police, yay. Scottish Greens are calling on the local council to end the Edinburgh tattoo flypast over claims it causes environmental damage. You knew that was coming. And emotional harm on residents. But is this just woke nonsense going too far? Part 356 or whatever we're up to now? All of that and much more to come. This is GB News, Britain's news channel. You can put the kettle on, but don't go too far. See you soon.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
Now, we've got a story and a half to tell you and bring you now. Our very own GB News political correspondent, who we love very much, Catherine Foster, joins us in the studio, and she's smiling, but she wasn't smiling for the past few days.
Two of her sons, Matthew and Andrew, were reported missing in Bali.
I got a text from a friend saying, can you give us a call, a bit worried about them. Then spoke to a girl they'd befriended who was in Sweden, but they'd met on their travels. And she told me that they'd gone up the mountain. By the time I found out, they'd been missing for 30 hours. They'd gone up the mountain on the Tuesday night, British time. This was the Thursday morning, without a guide. And they'd told her it was really hard. And she told them to turn back, but they hadn't. And they'd sent screenshots from this app with this trail that they were following on the app, screenshots of the app in case there was a problem, and a Snapchat of a Matthew avatar at the top. And she said, I know they made it to the top because I could see that his phone had nearly died. But the trail had actually closed many years ago. So the app, we will need to make sure that that gets taken off the app. But, you know, technology saved them in the end because it was the screenshots and it was the messages that they'd sent, but they should never have been without a guide.
But what were you doing during those 30 hours that Mum couldn't, when the phone died and Mum couldn't get in touch? Where were you? What were you up to?
Well, we were trying to figure out the best course of action, because it started to pour with rain. The amount of rain created a river, like a stream.
Yeah.
We were like, oh,
yeah,
let's follow the stream downhill, and then the sun set, and we just had to like sleep in the bushes in the jungle.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Okoye, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
It's true. You're not wrong. No one will be cancelled.
Lovely. Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Neil Oliver, every Sunday night at 6 p.m. on GB News. And if an hour is not nearly enough for you, go to gbnews.com for special extended episodes online every Friday at 9 p.m, where we can truly get into the nitty-gritty of what's going on. GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello and welcome back to The Weekend with me, Dawn Neeson on GB News. Now, fun police time. Yeah, we've been there before, haven't we? Edinburgh's Labour Council is considering calling for an end to the Royal Military Tattoo. You know, the RAF flypasts are amazing, aren't they? These aerial displays have come under attack over claims they cause environmental damage and inflict emotional harm on residents. Scottish Greens have won cross-party support to scrap the flypast over Edinburgh Castle. You can see a picture on the screen now. It looks gorgeous, doesn't it? With the Labour Council leader writing to military chiefs to express concerns over hitting net zero targets. Right, OK. Emotional harm from watching some jets fly over. Mike? Fun, please. Alert.
It's absolutely pathetic, isn't it? It really is utterly pathetic. You know, have you done the Edinburgh Tattoo?
I have. It's brilliant.
Done it, Amy?
It's
so
marvellous.
have I. So have I. It's a fantastic occasion, and there's nothing but goodwill all over the place. You know what I mean? Everybody you see, everybody you meet, everybody you're working with, the shows go on 24 hours a day. We had a set at 5 a.m. one year we were there, you know, and that was our time to do it. You came off and you had breakfast with the people. It's a wonderful occasion, and for somebody to put the damper on it now and so, I mean, what do they mean that, oh, it's polluting the air? The steam that comes out of those planes is steam. It's coloured steam. You know, it's not rocket fuel or anything like that that's going to fall on the people below. It's specially manufactured water which comes out blue, red and white, you know, and it's utterly pathetic. What they really mean is that we think this is a bit too British and we don't like Britain. We hate Britain because we're against our own country. We think it's, you know, far too right-wing, even with a Labour government. So why don't we scrap one of the great traditions of British life? Because it's not just at the Edinburgh Festival that these jets fly around, you know, doing the things that the RAF do. They do it at hundreds of events every year. And to try and scrap it is an utter nonsense, and I dislike very much the people who are suggesting it.
Amy, the Phil Hogger, a Scottish Tory councillor, who's only one of two to vote against the move to condemn the flypast, said, "These Marxists masquerading as environmentalists are hell-bent on obliterating the heritage of the UK, especially when it comes to our military."
See, I think, like Mike, he's being slightly hyperbolic in his language there. Because really,
Me
this
or
bloke
this
and
guy?
you, I don't think this is a Marxist attack. I just think it's some councillors.
I didn't say it was a Marxist attack.
What did you say? It was an attack on British values and British rights?
Yes.
I don't think it's that. I think it's just these councillors being oversensitive. So the Green councillor has said a lot of residents I've spoken to want the tattoo to reduce or end the number of flypasts. They are totally unnecessary and cause avoidable pollution and disturbance for residents.
They don't cause pollution.
But when I saw that, well, I guess it's a jet fuel, isn't it? It's just the jets going very fast.
It's a very small jet.
Yeah, and I thought, how many times is this happening for it to prompt this? But it's only 5 to 7 times.
Yeah, exactly.
So I agree. I think it is an overreaction. But just to see it from their perspective, they're talking about the noise disturbing, say, veterans who have had experiences in conflict zones. Now, this piqued my interest because then there was a response from the veterans charity in Edinburgh who said, no, we don't care, we quite like it.
Yeah, exactly.
So, but do you see what I mean? They're trying to be kind, they're trying to do the right thing, but maybe they've just overdone
it's
it.
politically motivated, isn't it?
But equally, the story is politically motivated because there's nothing to say this is going to actually happen. It says they're considering it, and then at the end of the story it says the council has no real power to cancel them anyway.
No, of course they don't.
So it's all a bit of hot air, really.
Well, it's not hot air. It's somebody once again trying to, you know, stamp their opinion on too much Britishness in Britain.
It's nothing to do with Britishness. It's just loud and polluting.
Rubbish.
It's red, white and blue.
How come?
But you know the jets.
Yeah, but how come it happens over 100 times a year in this country and nobody else has ever complained?
I'm sure they have.
So it's just this lot, you know, with their
it's a bit like the fireworks
stupid, you know, anti-British feelings who are making a fool of
I
themselves.
think they're trying to be pro-British by considering everyone's needs.
No, they're not.
And being kind and being nice.
No, they're not.
But then they've just done it a bit cat-handedly.
No,
but it's not going to
no.
happen anyway. Don't worry, Edinburgh. You're a military city and you're going to keep your fly pasts. But this was just a little mooted suggestion.
I'm going out to Edinburgh next week in any case.
Right,
so,
okay.
In any case, I'm Dawn Neeson, this is GB News. And what's that weather going to be like for you? Because that's important. Here is Greg with all your details. Hope it's a good one.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. The northwest-southeast split over the next 24 hours, turning increasingly humid as we go through Monday for everyone. A deep area of low pressure sits to the northwest of the UK. Outbreaks of heavy rain pushing into parts of western Scotland in particular. Met Office warning in force from this evening onwards. Here we could see 50 to 75 millimetres of rain falling over 24 hours or so, leading to some local disruption. So the rain continues through the evening and overnight across Scotland, Northern Ireland. England and Wales generally dry with some clear spells in the east. Western areas generally cloudier with some patchy rain over the hills. But that humid air moving in, so temperatures overnight dropping no lower than 15 or 16 Celsius in places. So first thing on Monday morning, a wet start across western parts of Scotland. The bright colours there indicating heavy rain. There could be some local disruption, and that rain only slowly pushing northeastwards through the day. Northern Ireland seeing a cloudy start, but further heavy rain quickly pushing in. Similar across northwest England, outbreaks of patchy rain. Wales and the West Country too. Best of the sunshine to start the day across eastern and southeastern parts of England. Through the day on Monday, further pulses of heavy rain continue to push their way northeastwards across Northern Ireland, western parts of Scotland. The Met Office warning out until 9 p.m. in the evening time, so there could be some local disruption through the day. Generally, further south and east, drier and brighter, but quite a bit of cloud. A very humid day, temperatures 25 to 27 Celsius in the sunnier spots. A little breezy across the northwest as well. Into the evening time on Monday, this weather front just starts to slip its way southeastwards, but just still notice some heavy bursts running along it across western parts of England and Wales. And then it's a mixed picture through the rest of the week. There will be some showers at times. Temperatures on the warm side in the south.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Wasn't quite sure I was liking the blue bits on Greg's map there. Not sure about that. Anyway, so loads more coming up on today's show. Campaigners in Dudley are marking the first anniversary of the burning down and subsequent demolition of the Crooked House pub. Remember that? Will we get that Crooked House back, though? All of that and much more to come. I'm Dawn Neeson. This is The Weekend on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Don't miss out on your chance to win a whopping £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. It's extra cash that could really make a difference to your coming year. You could find yourself on that holiday you've always wanted to take, buy that treat that always seemed out of reach, or just send some of those day-to-day financial stresses packing. £30,000 could be yours. For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text CASH to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB07, PO Box 8690, Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threat and so on.
As time passes,
She could have saved Storm.
you made my argument for me.
My guest and I tackle the issues that really matter with a sharp take on every story.
Went everywhere.
Something practical could be done.
I can become something different. Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the argument. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Your lunchtime update on the stories that matter across the UK.
From breaking news and insightful analysis, inspiring stories and lively debates. You're comparing yourself to a former Prime Minister.
Which is it? Stay informed, stay updated, stay entertained.
I just don't know how anyone would not want to be there.
Every weekday from midday.
We are Good Afternoon Britain, only on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon. It's 2 o'clock on Sunday, the 4th of August, and this is the weekend on the GB News, and I hope you're having a fabulous time out there. Now, violence has erupted across the UK from Hull, Liverpool, Bristol, Manchester, Blackpool and Belfast as demonstrations once again turned violent. But what drives these protests to turn into this level of violence and aggression? Then Labour is reportedly shifting its focus to voters under 50, prioritising house building and moving away from policies traditionally favoured by older Brits. All this in an ageing population. Are Labour abandoning the older generation? And campaigners in Dudley are marking the first anniversary of the burning down of that wonderful pub, the Crooked House. Will we ever get that Crooked House pub back? I love pubs. I'm Dawn Neeson, and this is The Weekends. It's very countryful, isn't it? But this show is nothing without you and your views, and I really, really promise I am going to read some of them out. But there's so many coming in, and I love you all for doing that. I can't keep up with them at the moment, but I'm going to get to them. And if you want to join in and put more of them on there, here's how you do it. It's very simple. It's, she says, remembering it. Visit gbnews.com/your say, and yeah, join in. I will read them out. Promise, most of them are those coming up now. But keeping me company on today's show is author and broadcaster Amy Nickel, and I'm sorry I've forgotten your name, lovely, but thank you to the person who said, good God, Amy's had a thought. And broadcaster Mike Parry, and I can't read that one out about Mike because I'd, probably get thrown off air, but thank you. No, it was very complimentary. But before we get stuck into today's story, here is the news with Ray Addison.
Thanks, Dawn. 1 minute past 2, our top stories this hour. Anti-immigration supporters have begun to gather outside hotels in Rotherham and Aldershot as police warned further violence is likely following protests in England and Northern Ireland. At least 90 people were arrested yesterday amid clashes between demonstrators and counter-protesters, with police officers attacked and injured. Comes after 3 girls were killed in a knife attack at a dance club in Southport on Monday. Greater Manchester Police have put a Section 34 dispersal notice in place in Bolton until 10 p.m. this evening. Speaking earlier on GB News, former Scotland Yard detective Peter Blexley did not mince his words.
No matter what somebody's concerns are, if you pick up a brick or you pick up a bottle
and you throw it at a police officer, you are an idiot. End of story. And unfortunately, we faced yet another evening of violence when more police officers were injured. Something quite dramatic is going to have to happen here, because I see no sign at the moment of this unrest diminishing. In fact, I see it escalating and spreading.
A supermarket owner in Belfast says his business has been reduced to ashes after it was targeted during disorder in the city. Bashir said Muslim businesses were deliberately targeted and is criticising police for their response to the violence. This morning, a clean-up operation was underway in the Donegal Road area following last night's unrest, which lasted for several hours. Bashir was asked if he would be able to ever reopen.
I don't know. You have to ask the police about that. When they stop all of that, then we will talk about it. All of that's happened, and the police did nothing. I'm telling you the truth. What kind of police letting the people to burn everything down? I don't know where is the safety in that, but this is all rubbish.
Number 10 sources are disputing claims that Sir Keir Starmer is planning a summer getaway on Monday, despite the risk of further unrest. It comes after Tory leadership candidate Robert Jenrick urged the PM to cancel his trip and get a grip on the situation. Many more arrests have been promised in the coming days, as the PM said the police have his full support to take action against extremists. Robert Jenrick says Sir Keir must stay and tackle this problem.
Well, look, I think it would be completely wrong for the Prime Minister to go on holiday whilst parts of Britain are burning. This is a very serious situation, and we need the Prime Minister to be leading the country. The police need our full support, and they need to know that he is there supporting them, making sure that this situation is being handled from the very top.
Former Labour MP and independent advisor to the government now on political violence and disruption, Lord Wolney, told us the PM can work whilst on holiday.
Keir Starmer, you can see, is absolutely on it, as is the Home Secretary and his ministers. And I imagine that even if, formally he is spending some time with his family next week, he will be properly plugged into it. I'm sure that is an issue which they are keeping a roving brief. And prime ministers are never fully off duty, as we know. Even if they've gone somewhere, they take with them the full apparatus to be fully switched on.
Sir Keir Starmer has accused protesters of attempting to sow hate by intimidating communities. Reform UK MP Rupert Lowe says he needs to listen to the protesters' concerns.
What we need is an honest debate. I don't have a golden bullet for years and years of the elite's mismanagement of our immigration policy, but we've got to have a frank and honest discussion about it. There isn't always a sort of one-line answer to these things. It's extremely complex. But what we can't go on doing is undermining the foundations of this great country and not listening to the people who are now concerned about it, because they're right to be concerned. They've got every right to be concerned about what's happening to their country.
In the US, Florida is bracing itself as Tropical Storm Debbie is expected to turn into a hurricane before hitting landfall this evening. Governor Ron DeSantis has called up 3,000 National Guard and placed most of Florida's cities and counties under emergency orders. Evacuations are taking place in those areas most likely to be affected. The National Hurricane Center has described it as a life-threatening situation. Winds are expected to build to 70 miles per hour and waves will get to 2 metres high. OK, those are the latest GB News headlines for now. I'm Ray Addison. More in half an hour's time.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you very much, Ray. Now, I've got my glasses perched on the end of my nose, so I'm going to read out some of your comments. Richard, come back here. Richard says, you haven't read any comments out yet after promising to read out as many as possible. Is it because you're waiting for someone to say something positive about Amy? No, I'm not like that. No, there are some nice ones. But this is one that I was interested in because it echoes what I was been saying as well earlier on, from someone called ex-military. Funny Harry Vet Cooper can find prison space for your words, white British men and speed up court process, but immigrants are not even arrested. The illegal immigrants across the channel. This attitude will accelerate unrest and is not a deterrent. Again, lots of you saying about how come suddenly the courts can open up and speed people through the courts when, you know, we are emptying prisons of prisoners and rape cases aren't prosecuted. But violence has erupted once again across the UK from Hull, Liverpool, Bristol, Manchester, Blackpool and Belfast as demonstrations have turned violent once again. More than 90 people have been arrested as injured police officers are treated for broken bones. Late last night, ministers were locked in talks with the judiciary to make courts sit for 24 hours to, just been talking about this, to fast-track sentencing. The Prime Minister telling police they have ministers' full backing to take all necessary action to keep our streets safe from thugs who sow hate. Prime Minister's words, not mine. Joining me is GB News reporter Adam Cherry, who I believe is outside the Home Office for us. Adam, look, everyone's saying, what's happening? Why are we not seeing anything? Why are we ones suffering out? Our streets are being burnt down. We're all being branded far right. And all we're hearing is words. We're not getting any proper action from the government.
Yeah, well, I mean, there is some action being taken, as you described and as was said in the bulletins. It's over this 24-hour court process. So they'll activate what's known as the additional courts protocol, which means that they sit for 24 hours to deal with the volume of cases flying into custody. Whether that's enough, we'll see. I mean, it did work in 2011 when Keir Starmer was the Director of Public Prosecutions. This was part of the deal that was discussed yesterday, was activating this protocol. And then it worked, but, you know, the question is this going to be enough long term? Obviously, a short-term solution is necessary, but the comments speak to the deeper problem, and perhaps there'll be a necessary conversation later on, further down the line, about why these protests are so violent and why this tension is simmering. But I'd say that's a discussion perhaps for another day. For now, the priority is getting the violence down. And we'll just have to wait and see whether that works. So, of course, Keir Starmer himself facing some difficulty in the next few days because he is reportedly going on holiday at some point in the next week. Downing Street pushing back somewhat, saying that he will not be jetting off on Monday, although that's not actually what the initial story was in the first place. If you read the Times piece, Times say he was going to fly away next week, or rather in a week's time. So a bit of spin there, but we'll see how that goes. Robert Jenrick, the Tory leadership contender, saying whilst Britain burns, it's not a good idea for the Prime Minister to shoot off. So perhaps he'll have to get a refund on his plane tickets, Dawn.
Indeed, not a good idea. Yeah, I think they should all get back. I mean, why should they go on holiday when we're all putting up with this? Thank you very much. That's Adam Cherry there. Now, I want to look at a different angle on this, because this is an angle I thought of when I was looking at the pictures from the riots overnight. So joining me now is psychotherapist Lucy Beresford. Lucy, hello, lovely. Thank you very much for joining me this afternoon. Now, you know, we're all talking until we're blue in the pace about, you know, why people are so angry, why we're rioting. But what I want to do from you is understand the psychology of a riot, the psychology of rioting. Now, obviously, basically, people are angry, but what makes some people turn it into the violence we have seen?
Well, I think what we're looking at is a very complicated picture, but also one that's very simple in human psychological terms. When we are frightened, when we are scared, we will often lash out. People have heard, I'm sure, of the flight or the fight response. And if you are on your own, the chances are you might run away. But if you know that there is a group around you, if you can imagine, you know, the saber-toothed tiger is chasing you, there's a real threat, and you've got your tribe around you, then you're going to feel much more confident about facing that threat. So what we had 6 days ago was a really traumatic incident, a tragedy where 3 small girls were murdered. And that has made people feel very unsafe and very vulnerable. And very quickly, what you see is that people find that they are not alone in those feelings, they want to express those feelings, and they start to go out onto the street. And the more that you see people going out onto the street, the more inclined you might be to go out on the street as well. We're very imitative creatures, human beings. We tend to learn about the world by copying other people. And so with social media in the mix, amplifying the stories and spreading the images of people going out and causing trouble or having a really powerful, emotional, angry response. There is something very primitive about human beings, and they will respond to that and follow suit.
So, Lucy, basically, it is no one's condoning this behaviour. It's appalling, it's shocking, it's criminal, and people are suffering. People are using their businesses. Police are being attacked and having, bones broken. So no one's condoning it, but it is basically what you're trying to say is like it's human nature, it's tribal.
What I'm saying is that it's very understandable. I think you're very right to not condone it, because there have been all sorts of incidents, whether, as you say, it's broken bones, people attacking the police, people attacking mosques, attacking shops, looting, that actually there's been real offensive criminal behaviour. But from a psychological point of view, it's incredibly understandable because people are very afraid. And the two words that keep coming up a lot, and they've come up a lot, they came up a lot in the election, and they've come up a lot with this particular episode, is a lack of trust and fairness. And people feel very unheard. They feel like the people in power are not listening to them. And they also feel that if they're listening, they're only listening to certain segments of society. And if there's another thing that human beings are very, very alert for, it's fairness. From a very early age, you're very attuned to whether you're getting your parental attention or maybe your sibling is getting a bit more than you, who in the classroom is getting more favoritism from the teacher than you are. We're very, very alert because it's a survival mechanism. And so if you can look at it through that lens, you don't condone it, but you can at least understand it. Because if you can understand it, you can start to address the root causes.
Lucy, as always, incredibly fascinating to talk to you. Thank you so much. That's Lucy Beresford, psychotherapist. Thank you so much for doing. So basically, the political point of it, the people are angry, they don't understand, they feel like they're not being listened to. We are hearing that constantly from news out there, and loads of people are saying the same thing. The Westminster bubble isn't listening to me. I'm not far right, but I am worried. Lucy's just said psychologically, that is what's going on as well. So it's not just political. What do you make of what you've just heard, Amy?
I found that quite difficult to listen to, actually, because Lucy said it's completely understandable and that people think
from a psychological point of view, not from a political or a criminal point of view.
But this, to me, is a complete demonstration of what happens when you scapegoat migrants for everything in society over the last 14 years. And this is the chickens coming home to roost. People think they can't get housing because of migrants. They think that they can't get healthcare because of migrants. They think all of society's ills and all the unfairness that they experience in their life are because of immigration. Immigration has contributed to their lives. Immigration is propping up. Construction is propping up the healthcare system. Without immigration, people would be far, far, far worse off. But because of the way our media works, because of the way certain politicians work, to be able to blame everything that's going wrong for this portion of society that are upset on migration, well, that's great, isn't it? Because then it's not their fault. So they can shift the blame to the migrant community for government's failings.
I'm just going to read this one quick message. No, it's not a message. It was someone who's been interviewed in the paper. John Crook, 62, a plasterer, travelled from Bradford to Liverpool for the rally to protest, not to riot. He believes the government is not listening to people like him who are not racist or far right, but have concerns about immigration. And this is going back, it's just not recent immigration as well. I grew up in an area of Bradford which these days is like a no-go area and nobody wants to admit it. 40 years ago, my mum would clean the stone steps of the house and would go to church. Now you can't walk those streets. Mike, does that sound like a far-right racist to you or an ordinary concerned citizen, echoing the gut feelings that Lucy Beresford was just talking about?
Well, a concerned citizen, and I think there's millions of them. I agree with one thing Amy has said, not with a lot of what she said, but when she said Lucy described it as completely understandable, I don't think it's completely understandable to witness the sort of behaviour we've had. Lucy, I'm sure, is a very highly qualified psychologist, right? No doubt about that.
Psychotherapist.
But yeah, he's a psychotherapist, but I didn't see her once mention thuggery. A lot of people just pile in on these sort of demonstrations just because they want to become a thug for the night and then get away with it. You get away with it because there's more rioters than there are police, so you haven't got much chance, really, of being lifted, you know? I know 90 people have been lifted and arrested, but that's out of hundreds, if not thousands, who've been rioting. So a lot of it is about thuggery. A lot of it is about taking advantage of the situation because you have now suddenly got it over the law and order authorities in this country. So get stuck in there. If at the back of your mind there is, you know, a bit of an anguish you've got about you think that your local community, say in Hare Hills and Leeds, has been completely taken over by people who've come to this country and they've diluted the indigenous population of where you grew up, then, you know, we know in this country we're one of the most tolerant in the world. You should take that to your local MP, take it to your local council, but they haven't got time to do that. The shortest route is to get involved in a riot that somebody else started and express your frustration like that, and it's something we've got to keep an eye on.
To say that's an appropriate emotional response or an emotional response that is completely understandable is akin to justifying domestic violence by being like, well, you know, she really wound him up, so, you know, you can understand why. There is no understanding of what we've seen over the last 2 days.
OK, well, let us know what you think. I mean, you've heard what the panel think, you've heard what Lucy Beresford said. And for all the best analysis and opinion on that story, just go to our website, gbnews.com. But now, some good news for you. Imagine having a £30,000 extra in your bank to play with this year. Well, it could be yours in our latest Great British Giveaway, as we are giving away the biggest cash prize so far this summer. And it could be yours, basically, and here's all you have to do to win it.
Don't miss out on your chance to win a whopping £30,000 in tax-free cash to spend however you like. It's extra cash that could really make a difference to your coming year. You could find yourself on that holiday you've always wanted to take, buy that treat that always seemed out of reach, or just send some of those day-to-day financial stresses packing. £30,000 could be yours. For another chance to win £30,000 in tax-free cash, text CASH to 63232. Text costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries cost £2. Or post your name and number to GB07, PO Box 8690, Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 5 p.m. on the 30th of August. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good luck indeed. Right, I'm Dawn Neeson, and this is GB News, and there's lots more coming up on today's show. Now, Labour is reportedly shifting its focus to voters under 50. That's not me, then. Prioritising house building and moving away from policies traditionally favoured by older Brits. Are Labour throwing the older generation under that proverbial bus? All of that and much more to come. This is GB News, Britain's news channel. Don't go too far. This one's going to get spicy.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Prince Harry, he's back again. He's reignited the row over Meghan Markle's shattered relationship with Britain. In an ITV interview aired last night, he explained why he still feels it's too dangerous to bring his wife back to the UK.
It's still dangerous, and all it takes is one lone actor, one person who reads this stuff to act on what they have read. And whether it's a knife or acid, whatever it is, and these are things that are a genuine concern for me. It's one of the reasons why I won't bring my wife back to this country.
So will we ever see Meghan Markle back in Britain? I'm delighted to welcome the former royal correspondent at the Daily Express, Richard Palmer.
Well, I think there is certainly a history of far-right extremists targeting Harry and Meghan. You know, there have been a couple of quite prominent cases, I think. But I'm always a bit perplexed by this argument that Harry comes up with, because if you look at, say, homicide rates, comparing the US and the UK, the last figures I saw, you were about four times more likely to be murdered in the US than you are in the UK. And sure, we've got our problems over here, but you know, given that they've got such a high prevalence of people with guns over there, I would have thought the risks were higher over there than over here. And I think we have seen increasingly in the last couple of years that they have become polarizing figures in the US as well as in the UK. Perhaps not quite to the same extent, but there does seem to be a bit of a political divide, that if you're a Democrat, you're perhaps more likely to be sympathetic towards Harry and Meghan. If you're a Republican, not so much.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Are the newspapers getting you down?
My wife didn't divorce me that month.
Struggling to separate the wheat from the chaff?
I know that it's a bit of a circus at the best of times.
Well, don't worry. Headliners has got you covered. We'll take the burden of reading the day's news, and if we get depressed, who cares? It's an occupational hazard, frankly. That's Headliners on GB News from 11 p.m. till midnight, and the following morning, 5 till 6 a.m. on GB News, the comedy channel. Nah, just kidding. Britain's news channel.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment.
This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory.
Don't miss My Big Opinion. Mark Meets at My Take at 10.
Democracy is a funny old thing.
And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it.
Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it.
That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome back. This is The Weekend on GB News with me, Dawn Neeson. Hope you've got a nice cuppa in front of you, or possibly a beer. It's Sunday afternoon. I just want to read Kim's comment out, because Kim echoes what a lot of you are saying, and indeed the comment I read out earlier on from that gentleman who attended one of the protests but didn't write. Kim says, can I say the vast majority of people protesting are peaceful. The hooligans, rioters are just idiots. After what happened in London by police, bullying by police and government, people are angry. Well, I mean, that's Kim's opinion. I haven't witnessed any bullying by police, but, you know, hashtag two-tier Kia is trending. Make of that what you will. Social media is interesting at the moment, isn't it? Right, OK, now let's move on. Let's do another story, shall we? Labour is reportedly shifting its focus to voters under 50, prioritising house building and moving away from policies favouring the grey vote. The strategy comes after Labour's sweeping victory and aims to address generational inequalities and housing shortages. So, with Labour now focusing their efforts on the youth, are the older generation being forgotten? Now, I'm going to come to the baby of the family on this one. That's Amy. Amy, we were talking about universities earlier on and people going to universities when we actually need more people out there to build houses for young folk who can't get houses. So, Labour throwing the older generation under the bus?
I think it's not...
Or should they be throwing the older generation under the bus?
Absolutely, but I think it's just inevitable that their policies are going to be more in tune with the under 50s, not by design as such, but just when you're going for growth, addressing that generational inequality, they're going to translate to policies like house building, energy, GB Energy, and maybe focusing on childcare, which are all going to affect more people under 50s. But I think this isn't... I don't think they're politicising the decision in the same way as, say, when the Tories made the decision to go for welfare, when it perhaps wasn't the best thing for the country, but it just looks good performatively and politically. I think this whole perception that they're going for that they're leaving out the over 50s isn't really the case.
Is it a perception though, Mike? I mean, last week, Rachel Reeves' decision to delay a cap on social care costs and to scrap winter fuel payments for millions of pensioners.
Yeah, nasty.
It's not perception, it's reality.
I'm not joking. That to scrap that winter fuel allowance for pension, a nasty, pernicious
You're not saying why?
Nasty, pernicious act really early into their government. They've made it absolutely clear who they're going after. To take £300 £200 off an old lady who gets about £12,500 a year and who is checking literally the price of every purchase that she makes in Morrison's supermarket like that, to take that £300 off her, so she's going to have to huddle up in her coat in a winter's evening because they've taken £300 away, and to give it to a so-called junior doctor who probably earns about £60,000 or £70,000 a year,
Well, they don't.
is one of the nastiest pieces of legislation I've ever come across.
Can I reframe
And we know exactly why I know exactly why they're doing it.
Right.
Now, I am technically of pension age,
Yep.
and I can remember Labour governments that have been in power, and they've always bankrupted the country. And so people of my generation know that Labour will eventually bankrupt the country again, and they're not going to vote for Labour, and they know that. But the people who do vote for Labour are people who've worked in the public sector, because they've got gold-plated pensions, so they don't need the £300 because Labour have looked after them in the past. It's people who've worked in the private sector who've now come to the end of their working life, who are on £12,500 to £13,000 a year pension, who've had this £300 snatched away from them. I think it's the nastiest piece of legislation I've ever come across.
What about if I put it to you that I'm taking £300 off Alan Sugar and I'm giving it to a junior doctor
how many Alan
who has
Sugars
to
are
work
there?
a second job?
How many Alan Sugars are there, Amy? Tell me that.
How many millionaire pensioners? Isn't like 10%?
No, nothing like it. And if it is, it's because they've got a house.
Property, exactly.
They've got a house worth £1 million.
But the thing is,
well, unless they start soaring up the furniture to provide themselves with heat in the winter, that house doesn't pay for their winter fuel.
This is the generation that could buy a house with something like 3 times their income. Now it's 8 times their income.
And whose fault is that?
Something needs to be done to address this generational inequality.
But that's not the fault of the pensioners today.
But everybody can frame the winter fuel allowance in, oh, poor Marjorie who has to wear 3 coats on the bus. It's not really about those people, is it? It's more about rich pensioners and not means testing.
So let's punish these pensioners because, you know, they've so-called they've got £1 million house. It wasn't their fault that houses were in plentiful supply in those days. We've got 6 million more people in the country now, and that's why there's a housing shortage.
Or we didn't build any houses and we're not putting
Well,
any
because
forward planning.
Because you're sending everyone to university, so we haven't got any builders to build houses. Sorry, couldn't resist that one. But Age UK say that 2 million people may struggle to stay warm this winter because of this winter because of Rachel Reeves.
They will.
But then when you think about it in terms of what they want to put their emphasis on, so how many people are living in temporary accommodation? It is far more than 2 million people. So they're having to make difficult choices. And I think to put housing at the top of the agenda makes perfect sense because it affects 100% of people who are living in this country and not just...
And does the 70 grand doctor really need the £300 off the old age pensioner lady who won't be able to light her fire in the winter?
Every single person uses public services. If that lady falls ill over winter, she's going to have to visit a doctor and hopefully they will not be on strike.
If they get to her before she freezes to death, I mean, it's a nasty, pernicious piece of legislation. I can't believe that the so-called Labour Party, looking after people, could be so cruel to the most vulnerable area of society in this country, and that's old people.
But to look after society, we have to look after our
looking after old people.
Our infrastructure and our public services first. Stable public services is crucial to everyone's well-being.
Well, stable public services is fine, but why take it off old age pensioners when there are millions of other ways to do it, like cutting wasteful public spending in the NHS?
Look, we had to stop the public sector strikes somehow. This was a way to do it with the least damage done.
By giving them 22%. Oh, that's a brilliant way to stop it. Let's give them 22%. You'll see inflation going up again now, and you'll see other public sector unions demanding equal parity.
But I find this argument so strange that people are saying, oh, now all the public sectors will go on strike. All the public sectors have been on strike over the past 5 years.
And
now Labour have come and actually negotiated and settled these things. People have a problem with that too.
No, it'll happen again, believe me. They've tasted blood. The public sector have tasted blood. They think, wow, she's a soft touch. That's Rachel Reeves, the Chancellor. We're going to go after the money as well.
Slash
it's in their
fair
nature.
pay.
It's in their nature.
Blood or fair pay?
I'm just quickly on this one. I'm just wondering whether Labour's decision to settle with the public service unions has anything to do with the amount the public service unions donate to Labour.
The BMA is not affiliated with Labour. There are only 2 Labour frontbenchers who are directly affiliated with unions. This is the least union-affiliated Labour Party we've had in years.
But it's the most militant union in the country, the BMA now. The most militant union in the country, holding out for 35%, which actually they've got. 2 years at 22%, a third year would have been 33%.
Well, we've run out of time on that one as well, but let us know what you think on that one. I mean, do you think Labour are throwing older voters under the bus? Do they not care about anyone over the age of 50? Or are you on Amy's side and maybe youngsters do need looking after more? I'm Dawn Neeson. This is GB News. It's the weekend and there's plenty more coming up on today's show. But first, my highlight, it's the news headlines with the very young Ray. Right, OK, we appear to have a problem with Ray's mic there, so we will be getting back to him very soon. But I just want to read out a few of your comments while I have got time to do so. The one, I think, forgive me, I've lost your name for a while, but I think it was Mary, pointing out that our Labour have only been in power for a month and already we are seeing problems. We're seeing riots on the street, we are seeing older people neglected and nobody is being listened to. And so someone said, yeah, that was Paul again agreeing Labour have only been in power for a few weeks and already have the country in riots. They are calling people, normal people, who want the country back far right, and that sounds like a government who has no idea what is going on, calling people thugs at the very least. You know, there's a lot of that. There's a lot of that going on, so please do keep your comments coming. But I think we can go back to Ray now. Is Ray's mic working? Let's have a try. Ray, are you there?
Second time lucky, 2:33. They've got me. OK, we start with some breaking news. Masked anti-immigration demonstrators have smashed windows at a Holiday Inn Express in Rotherham, throwing pieces of wood and chairs, injuring at least one police officer. Comes after police warned further violence was likely following protests in England and Northern Ireland. Now, at least 90 people were arrested yesterday amid clashes between demonstrators and counter-protesters, with police officers attacked and injured then as well. It comes after 3 girls were killed in a knife attack at a dance club in Southport on Monday. Well, Number 10 sources are disputing claims that Sir Keir Starmer is planning a summer getaway on Monday, despite the risk of further unrest, which we're now seeing. It comes after Tory leadership candidate Robert Jenrick urged the PM to cancel his trip and get a grip on the situation. Many more arrests have been promised in the coming days, as the Prime Minister said the police have his full support to take action against extremists. Well, the BBC is reportedly paying for the therapy of a woman who made complaints about disgraced newsreader Hugh Edwards. According to the Sunday Times, Rachel became friends with him on Instagram in 2018, but made complaints in 2021 and 2022 after their relationship became, quote, toxic. It comes days after Edwards pleaded guilty to making indecent images of children. The BBC has so far declined to comment. And in the US, Florida is bracing itself as Tropical Storm Debbie is expected to turn into a hurricane before hitting landfall this evening. Governor Ron DeSantis calling up 3,000 National Guard and placing most of Florida's cities and counties under emergency orders. National Hurricane Center there is describing it as a life-threatening situation. Well, for the latest stories, you can sign up for GB News alerts by scanning the QR code on your screen or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you very much, Ray. I've just got to read this very quickly. I'm trying to get through as many as possible, honestly, so keep them coming. This is from Adrian. Adrian says, I'm watching you on my iPad in my local spoons.
Really?
Exactly, as you should be. It's Sunday afternoon, so take us wherever you go. We're available. Now, there's plenty more coming up on today's show. But before I tell you what we've got lined up for you, it's a real treat. It's Andrew Doyle in daylight. Later at 3 o'clock, he's standing in for the lovely Nana Aquia. Hello, Andrew. Lovely to see you. What have you got coming up in the show?
Lovely to see you too, Dawn. Obviously, there's an awful lot to cover. We, of course, are going to be talking about the ongoing violence that's taking place in various cities and towns across the UK, what this means for Keir Starmer's leadership, whether the honeymoon period is in fact over. We're also going to be discussing the gender wars in women's boxing, and in particular now with the news that Imane Khalif will be proceeding and will win a medal. And what does this mean for the sport? Is this a safe approach or not? We'll be talking about that. And also Priti Patel's comments about Reform UK and about how they need to be defeated rather than appeased. So some spicy stuff coming up.
Very spicy indeed. Exactly what we want on Sunday lunchtime. Hot sauce with Andrew Doyle there. Thank you very much, Andrew. Don't go too far. He's on at 3 o'clock straight after this. Now, remember, I'm trying to get through as many as possible. Let me know your thoughts on all the stories we're discussing today, especially if you're in your local pub watching us on your laptop. Very simple. Visiting gbnews.com/your say and join the conversation. And there is really, seriously, loads more coming up. We're running out of time. Campaigners in Dudley are marking the first anniversary of the burning down and subsequent demolition of the Crooked House pub. Will we get the Crooked House pub back? We love pubs here. All of that and much more to come. I'm Dawn Neeson. This is GB News. It's the weekend and you're watching Britain's News Channel.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather. A northwest-southeast split developing over the next 24 hours. Rain across the northwest of the UK. Some heavy bursts developing this evening and overnight across western Scotland. A Met Office warning in force. Quite windy here too. The rain continuing into Monday. Elsewhere, generally dry and turning quite warm and humid into Monday as well. For Sunday afternoon, generally dry across much of England and Wales. Though quite a lot of cloud, best of the sunshine towards the southeast. Cloudier skies further north and west, Northern Ireland, western Scotland seeing some outbreaks of rain, which will turn increasingly heavy later. Turning increasingly windy here too. Temperatures struggling with that as 15, 16 Celsius. Cooler further south as well, highs around 22 or 23 degrees. Through this evening time, if we zoom into Scotland, we can see the outbreaks of heavy rain across western parts, and further east it will be drier, some glimmers of brightness from time to time, and that rain also extends into parts of Northern Ireland. A Met Office warning coming into force across western Scotland from 6 p.m. right through the day on Monday too. Brighter skies to end the day across England and Wales, temperatures in the low 20s, so fairly pleasant to end the weekend. Across the northwest, as we head through the evening and overnight, you can see further pulses of heavy rain pushing in from the Atlantic, fairly brisk winds too. Overnight, generally cloudy skies for Wales and the West Country, some rain and drizzle in places. The rain turning heavier across northwest England too, the clearest skies towards the southwest, but with southerly winds we're drawing in quite humid air, so temperatures again mid-teens at their lowest. So a humid start on Monday, wet and windy across the northwest here, outbreaks of heavy rain, Northern Ireland, western Scotland. The Met Office warning out there through the day. Generally elsewhere, bright or sunny spells, but largely dry. And the winds coming in from the south, humid as well. Temperatures lifting towards the mid to high 20s across the east and southeast, fresher further northwest.
I'm Patrick Christie's. Every weeknight from 9, I bring you 2 hours of unmissable, explosive debate and headline-grabbing interviews. What impact has that had?
We got death threats and the bomb threats on.
As time passes,
She could have said storm.
you made my argument for me. My guest and I tackle the issues that really matter with a sharp take on every story.
Went everywhere.
Something practical could be done.
Or I can become something different.
Patrick Christie's tonight from 9 p.m. only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome back to the weekend with me, Dawn Neeson on GB News. Thank you for joining me. Hope you're having a wonderful weekend out there. Now, this weekend, indeed, campaigners in Dudley are marking the first anniversary of the burning down and subsequent demolition of the Crooked House pub. Remember, the building which was dubbed Britain's wonkiest inn. It's amazing, look at those pictures. Had stood there since the 1700s, but a suspected arson attack ripped through the building, leaving the community devastated. Our West Midlands reporter, the lovely Jack Carson, joins me now to explain what's going on today. Hello, Jack. Right, OK, well, tell us what's going on today, then. I love that pub. It was great.
Yeah, well, this is it. You know, it's amazing how much a year has gone by and how quickly it has gone by, of course. But it was a year ago that the Crooked House was burnt down in a suspected arson attack, which Staffordshire police are still investigating. You know, 6 suspects have been arrested, all released without charge. Those investigations continue. And of course, you know, in February we had South Staffordshire Council say that they got an enforcement notice on the owners to rebuild the pub. That's now gone to an appeal that's been delayed. So the campaign over the past year has probably been one of frustration, but of course Paul Turner from Save the Crooked House, Let's Get It Rebuilt, is all part of that campaign. I mean, Paul, can you quite believe it's been a year?
In some ways it feels like more than a year, because the people I've been campaigning with, it feels like I've known them for years and I've never met them before we started, but in other ways it seems to have flown by.
Yeah, I mean, what are your kind of memories of the Crooked House? It was such an icon, really, and what we've seen over the past year is how much it meant to so many people in the Black Country.
Well, I grew up in the local area, so, you know, I came down with my parents when I was a kid, sat outside with a bottle of Coke and looked at this funny building. Later on, I'd come down on my bike with my friends, and, you know, the landlord had let us in and let us see the marble rolling up the ledge. And then, as I got older, I'd invite, you know, friends who came to stay with us. We'd take them to the Crooked House because it was a unique experience. So people loved to see it.
Yeah, and why kind of organise this event today? Is it about keeping the campaign going? What's this event about today? You know, we can see the people around us. There's a lot of people that have turned out for this.
Yeah, I mean, the council have ordered a rebuild. The owners have appealed, and we're waiting for that to happen. It's been delayed until spring 2025, and so we're in a situation where we need to keep things going, keep people interested, and make sure that we're doing something that keeps us in the news, keeps the media looking at it.
And, you know, I guess it's frustrating because of how much things have been delayed. And you know, I remember at the time, you know, when we first got there and you saw it, and you could feel the emotion on the ground. But a lot of people maybe thought, well, it's just a pub, surely. But why did it matter to you? Why did people feel so connected to it?
Well, it's been there since 17. It's been a pub since the 1830s, and everybody knew it. I mean, it's even more famous now, of course, because of what's happened. But we all felt that it was ours. It didn't matter who owned it. It belonged to the Black Country. It was there before the United States of America existed. It's been there for so long, and we always thought we'd always be there. We never had any thought in our mind that there would be a time where it didn't exist.
Right, well, Paul, thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. I know you're a very busy person, so thank you for your time, because we're here at the event of Saving the Crooked House, this 1-year anniversary. It's gone by very quickly.
It really has. Oh, Jack, thank you very much. That's our West Midlands reporter, Jack Carson there, who every time I talk to him is somewhere where there's music and alcohol going. Well, it's a Sunday afternoon. Who can blame him? He's young, he's having fun. But I hope you're having a wonderful time out there as well. Now, the point of a pub is to be a hub for the community and for everyone to have a good time there. We've got a very, very quick comment from my wonderful panel on this. Micah, you know, we're rebuilding the pub.
Yeah.
Crooked or straight?
Well, I love British pubs. I really do. I'm a devotee of them. You take me to an English village.
Would you?
No. You take me to an English village and the oldie-worldy pub, you know, with the polished brasses and all that. So I want to preserve every pub in this country that you possibly can.
You're on a one-man mission.
I am, and one of these days I went out. But you can't rebuild that pub. The reason it was unique was because of the subsidence that had come over 300 or 400 years. You can't rebuild it. I'm sorry it's gone. And there's an investigation going on as to why it disappeared and it was set fire to, but I wouldn't rebuild it, honestly. It'll never be the same again. I'm sorry, it's gone. And there are thousands of wonderful pubs in this country, so I would give it up, honestly.
Amy?
Well, I've got a family pub. My dad grew up in a pub. It's been in the family for generations.
Wow.
I think if that burnt down, we would have to try and rebuild it.
Yeah, but you couldn't build it crooked.
When James, I think his name was James, said, Jack said, it's not, is it just a pub? It's like, no, it's more than that. No, no pub is just a pub.
Yeah.
It's been there for so long, like he pointed out, it's older than the USA.
That's right.
That's insane.
Yeah.
No, local pubs are as important as
I'd build something else.
They are
build something else on the
churches.
side, but you can't rebuild the Crooked House because the Crooked House was crooked and you can't build a crooked pub.
Well, there you go.
We've got dodgy builders, haven't we?
Pubs are pubs, and they're very important. I agree with that. And we're closing so many. We need to keep our pubs going.
Yeah.
And we are on a mission here on GB News to save Britain's pubs. Right, OK, well, I'm Dawn Neeson. This is GB News, and it's the weekend, and there's loads more coming up on today's show. OK, this is the good one. Do you think it's appropriate to wear fetish gear in the office? One civil servant seems to think so. Stay with us to find out more. Mike's just adjusting his suspenders as we speak. All of that and much more to come. This is GB News and Britain's News Channel, and it's the weekend. See you soon.
Sunday nights on GB News. From 6, Neil Oliver. At 7, it's Free Speech Nation with Andrew Doyle. At 9, Mark Dolan. And at 11, get set for the week ahead with headliners. Tomorrow's papers tonight. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Sunday with Michael Portillo. From 11, only on GB News.
Karen Stevenson was born in Stoke-on-Trent and read music at Trinity College, Cambridge. She's played cello with many of the world's great orchestras under the batons of some of the most renowned conductors, and she joins me now to discuss her career and the importance of music in education. Tell me about that. What is your role at the Philharmonia?
My role at the Philharmonia is number 2 cello. I've been there for about 15 years. Sometimes I play number 1 cello as well, which is a great opportunity for me.
Well, it's interesting you say that because I often think what a very difficult life it is to be a professional musician.
I make a living out of it. It is definitely possible. Yeah, we don't really like it when we get into a taxi and someone says, "What's your day job?" Because we work really hard.
I was kind of making the opposite point. Not that you'd also have a day job. I think the perfection that is required for a professional musician is extraordinary. On the whole, we are intolerant of mistakes in classical music.
Yes, we are.
And I just wondered whether you don't become very frustrated with a world in which everything else is imperfect.
You are only as good as your last concert, Michael. That's how it feels. It is a lot of pressure. Sometimes we will say, OK, a pint for every wrong note or something, but if depending on the piece of music, that could be quite dangerous.
How many hours a day do you have to practice?
You have to practice much more when you're younger, I think, when you're learning. I think this is really important. And when you're at music college. I'm a busy, I'm travelling, I have a family. I can't practice as much as I used to, so you have to rely on your experience. What I really wanted to say is that there's been a lot of fear-mongering about classical music being in decline and it not being relevant. And I really wanted to say that I don't think that's the case. Our audiences have increased. They're the highest they've been in 10 years.
The People's Channel.
Join me, Nana Okoye, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
It's true. You're not wrong. No one will be cancelled.
Lovely. Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome back to the weekend with me, Dawn Neeson. I hope you're having a blooming good one out there. Now, a government department is embroiled in a peculiar row over whether staff can wear fetish gear to work following complaints from civil servants about a transgender colleague. While this is quite a unique case, well, unless you know better, it has sparked a debate about what is appropriate to wear in the office. Now, I must confess, in my career as a journalist, I did once wear a full PVC catsuit. But I was working undercover in a brothel. That wasn't just in the office, by the way.
In the name of journalism.
In the name of journalism, and I made my excuses and left, you know. Now, but we've all got stories like that, and I always wear a smart-ish business suit. We've all been there, indeed. I'm hearing my ear. I need to find out more about that story, whoever said that. Amy, what is... I mean, you always look very smart, you look very summery today. This fetish gear consists of low-cut corsets, fishnet tights and chokers with...
Yeah, but I want to see some pictures of this individual.
Sadly, we don't have any pictures.
That's the issue I've got, because I feel like this is a bit
What sort of job was it, if you don't mind me
She's
asking?
working in the civil service.
In the civil service, I see. Yeah, well, that makes sense. Another mad
But do they not have a dress
policy.
code? Do they not? Because most workplaces do have a pretty clear dress code.
Exactly.
And you leave a bit of yourself at home, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
And you're appropriate, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's not too much to ask, but I would like to see a picture of this, because I don't really believe it, because this person's attracted loads of attention just for quite innocuous things for the best part of this year. But she's actually done some great work. She's got an honorary doctorate for her work supporting LGBT rights, and I think she attracts the wrong kind of attention. So it's not fair to pin on this individual, but if we opened it up to what you're saying, what is appropriate in the office? Well, I used to work in the Sun.
It's the Department of Work and Pensions, ironically, basically.
But in the name of journalism, I used to cover all sorts of things. I remember covering a naturist festival, so on that day, I didn't wear very much.
Golly.
Did you completely do the full...
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, I'm an investigative journalist.
We need to see the pictures to prove this.
Goodness gracious. I mean, that's quite
Come on, Mike,
shocking.
you must have gone undercover at a naturist camp at one point.
No, I never have, thank you.
I think it's a bit of a rite of passage in features writing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes.
I think the dress code in offices is something which has contributed to, in my view, a backward track in society. When I was, and Dawn will be the same in Fleet Street, men wore jacket, shirt and ties, and ladies wore demure clothes. I had to send a female reporter home once because her skirt was too short. And the reason I did that was because I said, look, if I send you out to a job that involves you mixing or addressing males, supposing I had to send you to a building site because there'd been some problem with the scaffolding, I'm afraid you're going to be a distraction. So I'm not being sexist, but you've got to dress appropriately for the job.
But wearing a short skirt is appropriate.
It was, believe me, it was a very, very short skirt because she was going somewhere after work to some do. And I said, well, in that case, you should have brought a change of clothing in because that is inappropriate in our newsroom.
Did you ever send a male colleague home?
Well, no, because I always insisted they wore a jacket, a shirt and a tie, and they all did. If they'd have come in with a polo neck jumper on or something, I'd have sent them home.
I have to confess very, very quickly, I did once send a male colleague home because it was a heat wave. He was a sports journalist.
Right.
He was wearing shorts in the office, but he had forgotten to put his underpants on underneath the shorts. And they were baggy shorts.
Oh, no.
Well, that's disgraceful, and I'm glad you acted with the responsibility that an editor should.
And I just wanted to mention very briefly the pole vaulting at the Olympics last night.
Perfect segue.
Appropriate dress. Yeah. Good underwear is important, and if you wonder what I'm talking about, this clip is available. The French pole vaulter.
He was just
hanging
out.
Had a bit of a wardrobe malfunction.
Hanging out at the Olympics.
That's it. Thank you very much for watching. Lots more coming up on the channel today. Don't go too far, because the weather's now. See you soon.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather forecast from the Met Office. The northwest-southeast split over the next 24 hours, turning increasingly humid as we go through Monday for everyone. A deep area of low pressure sits to the northwest of the UK. Outbreaks of heavy rain pushing into parts of western Scotland in particular. Met Office warning in force from this evening onwards. Here we could see 50 to 75 millimetres of rain falling over 24 hours or so, leading to some local disruption. So the rain continues through the evening and overnight across Scotland, Northern Ireland. England and Wales generally dry with some clear spells in the east. Western areas generally cloudier with some patchy rain over the hills. But that humid air moving in, so temperatures overnight dropping no lower than 15 or 16 Celsius in places. So first thing on Monday morning, a wet start across western parts of Scotland. The bright colours there indicating heavy rain. There could be some local disruption, and that rain only slowly pushing northeastwards through the day. Northern Ireland seeing a cloudy start, but further heavy rain quickly pushing in. Similar across northwest England, outbreaks of patchy rain. Wales and the West Country too. Best of the sunshine to start the day across eastern and southeastern parts of England. Through the day on Monday, further pulses of heavy rain continue to push their way northeastwards across Northern Ireland, western parts of Scotland. The Met Office warning out until 9 p.m. in the evening time, so there could be some local disruption through the day. Generally, further south and east, dry and brighter, but quite a bit of cloud. A very humid day, temperatures 25 to 27 Celsius in the sunnier spots. A little breezy across the northwest as well. Into the evening time on Monday, this weather front just starts to slip its way southeastwards, but just still notice some heavy bursts running along it across western parts of England and Wales. And then it's a mixed picture through the rest of the week. There will be some showers at times. Temperatures on the warm side in the south.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
We could be calling you with the news that you